Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Weddleton? Mr. Weddleton? Ms. Zolotel?
Here.
Mr. Dunbar?
Here.
Ms. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Rivera?
Present.
Ms. LaFrance?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Constant?
Here.
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Here.
Mr. Perez Verdilla is excused. Mr. Dyson is also excused. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Josh Spring, can you please come up and lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so moving on to new public hearings. Madam Vice Chair.
Move to combine the public hearings for items 4A through 4G.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition to combining the public hearings? Ms. Kennedy, any opposition to combining the public hearings?
No opposition.
Seeing no opposition, then the public hearing is combined. So I'm about to open up the public hearings for items 4A through 4G. That is 4A, ordinance number AO 2019-11S, adopting and appropriating funds for the 2020 general government operating budget. 4B, resolution number AR 2019-337, adopting the 2020-2025 general government capital improvement program. 4C, ordinance number AO 2019-118, adopting the 2020 general government capital improvement budget. 4D, resolution number AR 2019-338, adopting the 2020-2025 six-year fiscal program. 4E, resolution number AR 2019-339, approving the 2020-2025 municipal utilities enterprise activities capital improvement programs. 4F, ordinance number AO 2019-119, adopting and appropriating funds for the 2020 municipal utilities enterprise activities operating budgets to include municipal light and power and Anchorage water and wastewater utility reimbursable projects, MLNP BRU gas field fund, and MLNP contributed plant, and the 2020 municipal utilities enterprise activities capital improvement budgets. And lastly, 4G, ordinance number AO 2019-120, adopting and appropriating funds for the 2020 operating and capital budgets of Anchorage Community Development Authority. With that, the public hearing is open on these items. If anyone would like to come up and testify, please come up, and if you'd please sit in the first couple of rows. Each individual will have 3 minutes per item. If you're planning on testifying on more than one item, please let me know and I can add time. And when you come up to testify, please give your first and last name. Welcome.
Yes, good evening. My name is Tom Lockish, and I would just like to interject at this point that these budgets may have been amended if the mayor had pursued further utilization of the municipal solid waste at the Highland landfill. For about 4 years now, I've been trying to get him to address an issue that I was raising with him and the FedEx vice president in charge of renewable fuels. About 4 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Murdoch was interested in possibly using municipal solid waste to generate or have fuel, biofuel. And I've been trying to get Ms. Browse and Mr. Berkowitz to address this in emails for several years, and it came to light that there is a policy of the city to utilize municipal solid waste and gain value for it, and potentially the sewage waste as well that you wouldn't have to dispose of any further. and that these wastes could be considered part of the climate action plan to lower the footprint of carbon in Anchorage for the municipality and its employees who use planes and who use FedEx for delivery of services. Is it possible that one of the assembly members would be interested in pursuing this? I could forward those emails to them if there was a person on the assembly staff or an assembly member who was willing to pursue this issue.
So if you have any further testimony, I'd give it now, but otherwise, you can just, if you are okay staying here, if one of the assembly members wants to talk to you after the meeting, they will approach you and talk to you about your amendment ideas.
Well, I guess there's an address that will deliver those emails to the entire assembly. I could do that with a return address on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Would anyone else like to testify? Welcome.
Hi, I'm Becky Parker. I'm Executive Director of the Anchorage Senior Activity Center, and joining me this evening is our Board President, Gordon Glazer, who is also the State Chair of the Alaska Commission on Aging. We are honored to be a partner with the municipality of Anchorage for nearly 37 years, operating Anchorage's Senior Center, serving 1,800 seniors and many others who use our services. On an average, we daily serve anywhere from 200 to 300 seniors who use our center. And so we are here this evening to thank you and our Assembly, Mayor Berkowitz, his administration, the Health and Human Services Division, and Facilities Division. Your ongoing support helps the senior community in Anchorage lead a healthy, vibrant, and fulfilling life. I want to mention at the center, we offer a full-service restaurant. No one goes hungry. We have a fitness center, 42 aerobic classes and other classes that we offer, an art department, quilting studio, library, computer lab with classes, and we celebrate everything. By being here, we are also a safety net for our seniors. As a partner with the Anchorage Food Bank, we distribute 35 pounds of non-perishable food boxes monthly to seniors who meet the federal poverty level guidelines. Our senior center is accredited by the National Council of Aging, and we have become a benefit enrollment center for screening and assisting seniors who are applying for Medicaid and other senior benefits. We also have a Medicare office with 2 full-time counselors. Again, we appreciate all that you're doing to support our seniors in Anchorage and surrounding area, and we ask for your support on the operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Would anyone else like to testify? And before you testify, sir, I believe we are joined now by Mr. Weddleton. Mr. Weddleton, are you on the phone?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. Greetings, Mr. Chairman, members of the Assembly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for your attention. We're here in support of the capital budget and the operating budget, particularly how it affects our population of the Anchorage Senior Activity Center and Anchorage as a whole. The center prevention programs help aging citizens remain and become stronger, more social, and smarter. We prevent, delay, and mitigate diseases and injuries associated with aging by using aging evidence-based programs from chair yoga to Zumba. Programs on nutrition, living with chronic diseases such as arthritis, diabetes, and cognitive decline. We serve those, some who bike 12 months a year, and some who arrive at the center on a wheelchair on anchor rides. Anchorage Senior Activity Centers has 1,800 paid members, but many more participate in our programs. ASAC is an older person friendly place, sensitive to the needs of those over 55 and governed by those. However, most of you in this assembly have participated in a program at one time or another at the center. It might have been a conference, the Friends of the Korean Community Festival, the Celtic Festival, the Pioneer Dinner. Maybe you took an AARP driver safety course after you got a ticket, or used the tax preparation program. or attended a piano recital, got help figuring your taxes, or just came in for a flu shot and a library book. Our members pay taxes, they vote, and volunteer to make the city a better place, just as you make the city a better place. I thank them, and I thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. I don't have any questions. Could you give your name for the record, please?
Gordon Glazer, 1029 Potlatch Circle, Anchorage, Alaska, 99503.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify? Welcome.
I think you always say that with a grain of salt, Chairman. Ron Oliva, 48-year Anchorage resident, and I would like the limit, go to the maximum limit on all 5 appearances, if not 6, so it'll be open-ended. I didn't see a long line.
So are you planning on speaking on different parts of the budget?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I will go ahead and increase your time. Thank you.
To what number?
I'm increasing your time to 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, in this budget, it's always important to look for other sources of revenue. So when we switch things around, I think it's still important to look for what pays for these operating budget costs. And that's especially true in police and fire, because the police and fire respond to churches and nonprofits, other religious institutions, and general institutions that are not on our tax rolls. But yet they pay for fire and liability insurance. So if they had a claim, theft, etc., they're buying insurance. But when they call for the police or the fire or the paramedics, they're paying nothing. So I think you should look for that and allocate some money to research that through whether it be law or just general economics, getting the state to change their laws and make them pay for the services they're receiving on the backs of the other taxpayers. So when you get down to this fire department, that's an awfully big budget, and you need to have everyone pay fairly for those services. The health department, as you know, I presented to you my certificates in wastewater treatment and am aware of disinfecting some of the really tragically biohazard areas in the city, especially in the area of the Brother Francis Shelter and Beans. And now that road has actually been requested to be condemned and vacated due to safety and health. But they haven't responded with the disinfectant. And a biological hazard faces this city, and it's not being addressed by the health department, and it should be budgeted to do that. Along with the porta potties that is in the budget, you're not looking at an outhouse that's going to cost $500. You're looking at a sophisticated porta potty that has users that are shooting up, and you have to prevent that with special blue lighting so they can't find their veins. Seattle is paying $60,000 per porta potty. I think you're under budgeting for those around the city and should take a little of the AWWU money, the health department money, and then the nonprofit money, because they're paying their executives such outrageous salaries that it's inconceivable to me not to have them pay for some of that facilities that we're providing as a city. And surely the homeless coordinators, $176,000 in the mayor's budget. That's equal to the salary of the Mat-Su School District superintendent. That's outrageous. For a person who 3 years ago was at 196,700, you multiply 200 times 3 plus 176, that's $750,000 paid to one individual to lead us from a challenge to a problem to a crisis. And to continue to use her services is unbelievable. And so that should be deducted. And the mayor should recognize he surrounds himself with a lot of smart people. This one with that title is doing him no good. And I think he'll pay politically for that, but we don't want to pay financially. When we get into Parks and Rec, I think there's a big conflict. I myself averaged in the past about 20 tons of garbage because Parks and Recs didn't come down and pick it up in my area. I adopted the streets surrounding my lots, and it included Beans and the brother Francis. But they're down there twice a week, like almost SWS pickup. And I think you have to allocate either more money to them or put those camps on a regular garbage pickup route. And hey, someone's going to have to pay for that. So I think it's wrong taking it out of Parks and Rec's money. Now, the Anchorage Police Department, it's an embarrassment to hear our chief say and state publicly it's an embarrassment that you have to wait 10 months for records. My own record for being falsely incarcerated for 36 hours in one of Anchorage's finest correctional institutions, with that charge, which was dropped, put me on the Homeland Security list, and I'm still unable to enter the base. And it'll be another 6 months wait to get the record, to clear my record, which has already been dismissed. And that causes me great economic harm. Also, it's an insult as a patriot that I can't enter a military base. So you need more money there. And speaking of the police department, as a candidate for this assembly, I was against hiring another 100 officers. That turned out to be a mistake because the sentiment among people who are violated, they don't call the police anymore. Crime is not down. People are just too frustrated wasting the time to call them. And that leads to a real negative psychological falling. And what helped me the most in the hundreds of times that I've been violated, but more importantly, when I see violations occur, especially in the sexual assaults, the number one thing that saved me wasn't the police responding, but the chaplain. And I think the chaplain may have some religious overtones to it, but it was the counseling and the calming effect of not acceptance, but just calm down. We're not going to cure you in a day, but gave me some positive direction. So I think if you reallocate, instead of responding to a crime with guns out, etc., or the number of crimes that occur, put more money into a ride-along counselor to diffuse the disgust that nothing's going to happen with this police report. And at least you can do something positive, making that person, if you can, feel better about being a victim of a crime and not letting it happen again. So I think that's important in records and then in the police force itself to allocate more money in that direction to make a taxpayer feel, well, you're not going to catch them, you're not going to punish them, but hey, how can I feel good about at least doing something preventive and get me back on track? The other thing in real estate, it's very difficult because it's a broad-based investment in that department. But one of the things that's been very limited is in the area of the Brother Francis Shelter in Beans is the old Native Hospital. And you don't want to see a third world Armageddon type scenario, but if you do, go to that area. Is that 9 minutes?
That is, sir.
Okay. May I summarize? Just one last statement.
If you have one
Real quick.
sure, but
You never
had
get
ready.
kissed unless you ask. So it was the bonding issue. I want out. I want you to put $2 million somewhere, either in a bond or pull it out of the ML&P sale or the other utility sale.
Thank you.
And buy me out, and I'll get out of your hair and never
Mr.
come
Oliva.
back. I
Thank you for your
promise.
testimony.
Are there any questions?
I do not see any.
That's unfortunate. You know what Plato said? You have to be involved politically so you're not governed by inferiors. Have a good day.
Would anyone else like to testify? Anyone at all? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Carl Cancer. You know, the good Lord knew I was going to be in this position, and I wish He would have made me more eloquent, or at least give me the vocabulary of William F. Buckley Jr., perhaps Howard Cosell, even Yogi Berra. So anyway, there's something about the bus system. I'm here to follow up on the bus system again. This is the report card, public transportation system. It's available at the People Mover. And it's real interesting. You know, and I'll cover this, but they talk about the ridership has increased. But I wonder, knowing and riding a bus and seeing some people get on a bus that don't pay, has the revenue increased along with the ridership? So that's a question that I think should be asked of the People Mover bus system. And you look at this, some of these routes, their yearly cost is like $3,600,000, $3,200,000, $2,500,000. It's all in this book right here. Now, as a follow-up, eggs, bacon, oh, I'm sorry, wrong page. I'm not sure at the last meeting that you heard what I think I said, but anyway, I may have to, or may repeat myself, but I hope it's not boring. But the old Seward Highway, the previous Route 60 and Route 36, used to run every hour on the hour. They eliminated that to give other routes every 15 minutes. Something doesn't make sense. There's a problem here because, as I said last week, you not only have the distance for these people along the old Seward Highway and in Spenard, but you have the time. And 36 and 60 used to go right past the library. 36 through Spenard, down 36 to APU to Geneva Woods, and sometimes I go to Geneva Woods. My doctor refers me there for some reason. It's a long walk from Tudor, Lake Otis, or Benson Boulevard. And the elderly lady that was here, physically challenged, got on her knees. We pay taxes for the People Mover, and we also pay fares. So, you know, why should we pay more or not get the service? As I understand it, there was a world expert that came here, was paid $100,000 to turn our system into shambles. I'm calling it shambles. I could have done it for a 10-year free bus pass, irrevocable. Bus pass cost me $300 a year. $3,000, I would have saved you $97,000.
Thank you, sir. You are out of time. Thank you for your testimony. Would anyone else like to testify? Comment up, Mr. Haberman. Well, you can come up too. Or not. Ay, ay, ay. Welcome.
See, where's the mic? Oh, there it is. Thank you. Name's Charlie Rogge, and I was nearly a statistic last week. We've been discussing for months, I'll get to my point in a minute, we've been discussing the budget for months for pedestrian, or make more pedestrian-friendly Anchorage. Last week, as I was crossing C Street to get back to my apartment after getting off the bus, when the walk signal did finally come on, I was stepping across and had the walk sign. It was the audible traffic signal, or audible pedestrian signal. And as I was walking across, almost to the median, maybe not quite to the median, well, there was car coming from the opposite direction from the east as I was walking east, turning southbound, and hitting or walking, waving. Whoop! Did I go on? Oh. Okay.
Just stand back. Just stand back. Yeah, if you stand right there, try that.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. So walking forwards, going east, as the car was coming from the east and turning southbound, was waving my cane like so, up and down, up and down. Next thing I hear at the side of the car, and it brushed the back of my hand, which, just by the grace of God, no injuries, thank God, but it was just just a split second in timing would have been definitely mowed down by that vehicle. So, and I see that it is, the light being so long, they probably take opportunity to text, and then the light changes, and then they just gun it and make their turn. So, and not knowing that there's a pedestrian wearing a bright reflected orange vest, and there was only one person who I know of had witnessed, but they didn't get a license plate number of the vehicle other than it being a maroon hatchback sort of vehicle. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Can I add to his?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and Mr. Constant.
So I have a question for you, sir. So you. Yes. Come back to the microphone. She can help you out. I was at the corner of 5th and Carluck recently, and that's in front of the Lucky Wishbone.
Okay.
And there was a man who was walking with a cane, and I think he also had some pretty severe mental illness.
Oh.
His cane was ground down, like it was kind of nuts. And he continued to walk into Fifth Avenue traffic, and there was just no way to convince him that he shouldn't be standing in the middle of a highway. What do you think a regular citizen ought to do when they see that kind of situation?
Well, the report, I would guess, report the incident if there's a concern about one's safety. If they are indeed in danger, I try to err on the side of not intervening, but if then that situation, maybe they may need an intervention of some sort, or at least that normally it would be waiting. You don't go up to a blind person and grab them by the arm without saying anything, or saying, asking them, may I be of assistance?
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a totally different situation than
if you
he
could
was
introduce
in.
your...
I'm Karen Barnard. I'm a guide for him around Anchorage. I was not with him at the time. I'm wondering if those cameras, there appears to be something up, some kind of gizmo up in the lights. Are those cameras? Is there footage available? Because we do have the date. I went around the neighborhood and nope, there's nothing. So he's just SOL. Not quite dead this time. Okay. Looks like you need a body cam.
Give me another chance.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll testify next. All right. Karen Barnard. I'm a guide with him. I went up to the clerk's office for the all the budget items, trying to see what the budget is and ask specific questions. They weren't able to answer any of them. They didn't have copies of the budgets. They just have these papers. Like I had all these papers out on the counter, and it's like, they have overall numbers, so I started asking specific questions. They weren't able to ask anybody. In fact, she says, you just got to go around to each of the directors, so I have to go around Anchorage to see. So I don't see how anybody in the public can even come and testify, and, there's not a whole lot of people. So people are asking me what's going on with the budget. And I've been here for the Secure Med Campus a couple times, and people are wondering why there isn't a solution, like the Homeless Coalition Project. I looked at their report. I'm a technical writer. Lots of technical stuff, lots of stuff going on, but there's no action. 0 beds came online 2019 for treatment. We have an empty ML&P building. So, I feel like I'm just wasting my time up here. And my friends, they wonder what's going on. And I just come back and say, well, nobody asks any questions. There's nothing going on. There's condos going in on the Alaska Native Hospital site that should be medical. It was deemed medical in 1947. And it's been fenced. Why isn't it a secure medical campus? There is a model. My idea is not original, but I would think, this problem's been going on for 20, 30 years, and that property's been empty for, 20? It's been torn down 20 years. So why aren't we using it for a camp that people cannot come and go as they please? If they're having problems with addiction, are we just allowed to use up our fire department, our emergency room, poop in people's yards? We need to use that property for that purpose, and I'd like to see the Assembly be proactive.
I have a question for you, Ms. LaFrance.
Yeah.
Thank you for your testimony. Were you able to get the documents, the budget documents, online? Did you?
I was online. I found the agenda. That's improved. Thank you very much. I've been looking at these across several months. As I said, I'm a technical writer, and that has improved. But like on the agenda that's online, there's a hot link to a document that is that pile out, the top row out in the boxes. But then there's another document down below, and there's no document available. There's no budgets. There's no links to budgets. So, in my copious free time, because we've been hosting homeless and people who are mentally ill on private property, we need that Alaska Native Hospital site.
So I don't know if you were able to go to the Office of Management Budget, but that's where all of the budgets are hosted. And I do understand your concern regarding access to the information. It's something that the Assembly has discussed. And then regarding the earlier incident, I don't know if the gentleman was able to contact APD, but I would suggest doing that. I don't know what recourse could come.
Yeah, we didn't bother because somebody stole stuff from me. I was supposed to hear back from APD 2 weeks. It's been beginning of September, 2 months. And then people say there's 10-month backlog. Why bother?
I respect that, but I would still call. Mr. Constant?
Thank you. 2 things. One is that the budget documents are available online at the OMB website. So you just go to the Muni, to Office of Management and Budget, and all the budget documents are available there. And what neighborhood did you live in, did you say?
My mother's property is downtown, right by the Alaska Native Hospital.
But where do you live? Where do you vote?
Oh, out in South Anchorage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Last question. Who's your mom?
Pardon me?
Who's your mom?
Marguerite Barnard. My dad was a civil engineer here for decades. But yeah, there's 2 cute little cottages, bright yellow, and this Alaska Native gentleman, he's very ill, and he has a payee, and they have a bedbug-ridden room for him, and we got a security camera that he broke, but we have pictures of him. He's happy. He's dancing around. He chooses our house because we, as a people, have put him in crappy place, but he cannot be unsupervised, and that's what the Secure Med Campus is all about. It is the solution for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify? Anyone at all? Welcome.
There'll be 3 items, so that'll make it 9 minutes for the record. Thank you. Set my timer. My name is Eugene Carl Haveman. I represent myself. I live in the Mat-Su Valley. Follow the public process. When the public process done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely public interest. I think the first thing I should address is number 1, the budget as far as the amount. The proposed budget doesn't show a clear willingness of the administration and the assembly to really get down to show the public you've done everything you can before going to go with taxes. And what I'm saying in taxes is that, as I said in the last public hearing, there was a side view picture at, not in this room, but at City Hall, where there's, after you approve this budget, there's direction to go in town hall meetings and with other items to address, like sales tax and other taxes that the public's in the dark about, but it's going to be quickly asked to, what do you think about it? And then basically it's a done deal as far as the short, narrow time frame before April comes in, elections and all that. So coming from a budget, approval, then how you're going to pay for it later with the missing part, what the state's going to do. The state is going to basically, it's already told the rest of the Alaskans that they're going to propose a reduction in state. And that means you're going to find less monies. And finding less monies, you're going to have to find where you're going to come up with it. So going to the public and say, well, we've done everything we can, I don't see that. You have not done everything you can before you go into that direction, nor has the Mat-Su Borough done that. And that's why when they had a Mat-Su Borough sales tax public hearing, they ended up with only one, about 6 months ago, and everyone went against it. And then they didn't do a second public hearing, and that was it. It was a done deal because you haven't proved to it. You haven't proved to the public that you dealt with the issue. I'm going to be talking about a couple things here. Number 1, key thing is transparency. I've addressed for a long time, you need to move these meetings here. Look, the people before me were addressing not being able to connect. Your referral to the website for management and budget, is that really want to say that? The proposed budget should be right in front for the public to see. I don't see any hard copy of the proposed budget, not a single hard copy here, but you're directing to the website, and it's hidden in the website somewhere else, not up front. Number 2, the minutes. It's come to my attention since the last public hearing, and Barbara Jones mentioned it at a meeting with about 3 or 4 members of the Assembly present in another sidebar meeting at City Hall, that they were like a 1 year behind. But then in that same meeting, Barbara Jones, for those who don't know, is the municipal clerk in charge of elections as well as how things are run with the municipal clerk's office, said that as far as getting money to deal with this issue, she was saying, not to many of you, but a few Assembly members in a Thursday's meeting, I believe it was, about a week ago, that I don't want to propose it because that might take away from you maybe monies for the library. Excuse me, record keeping is a key. Responsibility, the public, the votes you do. 1 year behind is a tragedy because many of you weren't here when those votes were taken because you changed 2 or 3 or 4 from year to year. The museum, yeah, I never talked about that. But the museum has turned into more of a carnival. The first Friday of the month, you walk in there. What happened here? It's not the museum I remembered. I remembered where Alaskans, people who live in the area, would think of the one place to bring their friends and relatives when they come to visit. One of the top 5 places would be the museum. I challenge everyone to go to the museum and see what the first Friday of the month is. That's not the museum that I believe the public in Anchorage or anyone would like to see happen. It needs to change. Imaginarium is not what should be there, and it's become mostly the first floor Imaginarium seen there. Yeah, some of you are surprised, but give me a break. The port. Deal with the earthquake. This is going to be an expensive proposal to deal with the port. I don't question the need to. It's a big challenge. Where's the money going to come from? But don't fix it in a way that's going to collapse. Because you've not dealt sufficiently with earthquake. You know, what are you going to do? It's in a bad place. Okay, yes. But there are things technology-wise you can improve, but don't take any shortcut, because I'm hearing those words out there in these meetings, shortcut, to say save money here so we can do more in the port. Well, let's make it sure it survives, okay? Homeless. I'm still waiting for an answer as how much money you spend on food from the Assembly and others and boards and commissions. Stop it. Look, you had an emergency on dealing with the homeless situation. It's still an emergency, but you continue eating at Assembly meetings. Also, Assembly meetings, you have them out in the back. That creates a possible potential violating the a serial meeting. You're gathering together in the back room, wrong. You can gather in the back room if you do an executive session, that's okay, but not dealing with food. Stop the food, you're not going to be in the back room. But if you still want to be in the back room, you better be in executive session and held an announcement of the meeting. And the last thing is, well, I talked about that. Oh yeah, buses, whatever. One thing about moving around, it's very difficult to move around if you're going by buses, okay? Especially in the winter. But what's going on is not all the fault of this administration or you, but many of the roads in Anchorage are taken care of by the state. Coming into town, Merrifield, Fireweed, those happen to be one of the most treacherous areas during the winter. Ice buildup is way high. Because we had breakups during the middle of winter, that has resolved somewhat. But we're moving in tomorrow with a caution to everyone driving, and that ice gets built up. And I'd like to remind the administration and you all, back in George Sullivan's days, the first place Anchorage dealt with snow was in the evening. It went downtown, and you dealt with the streets in the evening, cleared all those streets, then you didn't have that ice built up. Something's got to be corrected, and it needs to be done now, because I'm surprised there's not as many accidents, reckless situations occurring. And that's all I have to say with, 1 minute and 7 seconds to spare.
Thank you for your testimony. Would anyone else like to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing no one, public testimony is closed. Just a few quick notes before we move on in our agenda to Assembly comments. Tomorrow from 1 to 3 p.m. at the first floor conference room in City Hall, we will have another special Budget and Finance Committee meeting, specifically to discuss 2 topics which are pretty big in our budget. First is the Academy and Vanguard project, which is in our capital budget. And then second, the LNP proceeds and how the Assembly wants to move forward with that, which is in our operating budget. Second, Friday, November 15th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. in the first floor conference room at City Hall, we will have a work session on Assembly amendments. It should be a lively discussion, I'm sure. Then next Tuesday, November 19th, we will have a regular assembly meeting at 5 p.m. and we will vote on the budget at that time. At least the intention is to vote on the budget. With that, I will go ahead and turn it over to assembly comments. I'll start on this side with Ms. Quinn Davidson.
None for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just in case some of you may have missed it, we had the ESPN Basketball Classic out at Alaska Airlines Arena last Friday, and it was a really amazing game. It was the first time we've had Division I basketball since the Great Alaska Shootout ended, and I think it was a sellout. I mean, there was people standing all over the place, and it turned out the University of Washington came back and upset the 18th ranked Baylor Bears, and we don't know if that tournament will be coming back to Anchorage again, because that was the 8th annual ESPN Military Classic, and they move it around the country to cities that have military bases. And so maybe if we wait our turn, we'll get it back again here in another 7 or 8 years. But it was great while it lasted. And the Seawolves won the second game, too. So it was a great night. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Ms. LaFrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looks like we have quite a few students here tonight. Just how many of you are here for a civics class or history class, out of curiosity? Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, welcome. Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Constant.
For everyone who needs a signature, you can get to any one of us so that all of you can get out of here in less than 20 minutes.
But Mr. Constant really does want to sign all of your papers. Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No comment.
Thank you. Ms. Selatel.
No comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weddleton.
No comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to audience participation. Would anyone like to participate? It's just 3 minutes. Yeah. Welcome.
Here's the timer. Oh. Okay. My name is Eugene Colehaven. I represent myself. Follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, a decision made by the governing body is more likely in the public interest. We could have a lot more people in this room, but we didn't have many, very few. Most of the people in this room are students, and I'm glad they're here. I really am, seeing what's going on. But the fact is, where are the rest of the population? You're dealing with a very important decision in the next few weeks, the budget. And how many people did you really hear from face-to-face at this mic? Not many. The first one you did around a few minutes before midnight, first public hearing, about 3 approximately. Second one you did at 6 o'clock. That was more respectful, thank you. And I believe you added a third one after the travesty of the first one and having the special meeting. But there also was a conflict going on next door, dealing with the Midtown congestion proposal. I couldn't help but notice quite a few people were next door in that before this meeting started, but they pretty much emptied out and they went somewhere else. But I also like to mention that proposal, the Midtown. Now, I heard that same proposal with AMATS, and one thing stood about, they provided the cost. How much is it going to cost? A few days later, it went before the Assembly, City Hall, heard the same proposal, and there was nothing mentioned at all how much it's going to cost. How come it was addressed in AMATS and it wasn't addressed at that other meeting with more Assembly members present? I asked that question to the parties that are hosting the event across from the room here, or this evening, and they said that, the reason was we had a short time for a presentation. How much time does it take to deal with showing the numbers? What are those proposed costs of the project? And they come in different stages, by the way. That's what we're talking about, an example of something as significant, and I'm not saying the project is a bad project, but we would want to know from the start of what is the future, what's this going to mean in financially? How long is it going to take to develop? And what are the impacts to that project on the neighborhood and so forth? These were not addressed at the two meetings I was present. But in there, they also didn't have the cost too much out in the open with paper trail. So I plead with you, let's end that whole scenario. Let's get the numbers. Let's know what we're talking about. And I'm going to say we, the public, and you. And that basically closes my comment, I believe, with...
Thank you.
I didn't even see my timer.
Your time is up. Thank you. Would anyone else like to participate? Welcome.
Thank you, Karen Barnard. I have comments about Merrill Field. It's noisy. They're violating FAA law. It's supposed to be, smartphones, there's something called a sound meter. Try it. All the testosterone mobiles that are out of allowable noise levels for Anchorage, they are ruining our hearing. And are you guys going to help me buy $6,000 worth of hearing aids? We're standing on corners getting our ears blasted. I've been helping my mother downtown. I sit out in the yard. I can't even carry on a conversation on the phone because over 50% of the small planes coming out of Merrill, they come over downtown. They're supposed to be way up high. They're coming like just barely clearing the Sheraton. This is how scary it is. And so I went online and looked. You can go look up FAA. 75 decibels. That's a loud conversation. That's the max over a residential area. In downtown, there's rural caps childcare, hotels. There's a lot of apartments. Fairview. They're in violation. And so I've called the, operations manager, and I didn't even get a call back. One day I sat and wrote the times and description of every plane. So I have this piece of cardboard. I think it's ridiculous that I would have to file complaints. It's going to cost the city a lot of money. I think you need to go talk to the operation manager. They need to talk to the boys and girls taking off in Merrill Field with their cool little planes, their Alaskans. It's like rah, rah, rah. That's like the epitome of Alaska if you have a plane. But they're violating the FAA noise ordinances. And they're supposed to take off. They're supposed to use the whole runway, meaning they will then have elevation. There are specific corridors you can read about. And I noticed they do use those. You can see them coming in over the downtown and then up the Seward Highway, south of the Seward Highway. So they're doing that, and they're going over the inlet. But they're too low because they're not using the whole runway. So I'd like to see the assembly get on their case. And I'm out there a lot, and I walk downtown a lot. So if I continue to hear them, I'm going to file all those complaints, and it's going to cost us a lot of money. And back on the homeless issues, we are wrongly using money by the fire department, the emergency responders, the emergency room. Department of Corrections has 65 to 95% of people who need mental health care. The secure medical campus is only a start, but it's a model.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have one quick question for you. So you tried to talk to Ralph, and he didn't get back to you?
Nope, didn't get back to me. The secretary's really nice, and I'm chatty, I don't want to bust. My uncles all flew. My grandfather flew an open cockpit.
So there may have been any number of reasons why Ralph didn't get back to you, but I would try calling again because he's been really good at.
It's a continual problem.
So he's been really good at dealing with complaints from neighbors, and I would also add that for years now, Assembly members have been on top of this with Merrifield. My predecessor, L.V. Gray Jackson, and then Meg's predecessor, Dick Traney, have had meetings with Merrifield for years on this subject. So it's been discussed in length.
They need to start fining the individual planes, and I'll give you, you want the copy of the cardboard? Specific times.
Welcome.
I'm sorry I missed tonight's meeting. As some of you may know me, my name is Hank Wentz, and I write for Anchorage Press sometimes when they deem me fit to release their editorial. I would like to commend you guys, because you guys face a multitude of problems, and not everybody is going to agree. And sometimes your position changes. And I commend that. There's a lot of issues that I stand up for that, you know, and I'm trying to learn to speak in public because I don't usually have a filter on my mouth. And I'm scared and I'm nervous, but the things that are important to me are things that other people are actually live in, you know, and they take it for granted. And like my trauma, I'm put on a back burner. And I speak about that. Being willing to be vulnerable and a transparency and gentle vulnerability, because I'm the tip of the iceberg. And there's a lot of people across America like me, but let's talk about Alaska, because I talk about Native positions. Although a lot of you don't know that my grandfather was full-blooded German and my other grandfather was half Norwegian. So I walk in three cultures, and I like to call double standards even on natives. But for now, I'm giving you guys kudos because I appreciate the work you guys do, and it's so diverse and so argumentative just by the community. So I just wanted to make that public. But please, you know, they changed the rules on me, just like society does, about me having a voice at the Anchorage Press. So the more likes I get, the more I get published in, the more money I get paid. And every article I write is not about the money, but it's only $70, and I haven't had an income in 3 years. So please follow my stories, and please like me even online. Thank you guys for doing a good job.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak before us? Seeing no one, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.